Go ahead and take your seats. If you need to get up in the middle and go stretch and rehab from this morning's PT session, feel free to do so. But in the meantime, to open this morning's It Starts at Home panel, please help me welcome to the stage the 21st Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, David R. Wolfe, and his wife, Dr. Doniel Wolfe.
All right, folks. How's everybody feeling? That was quite a workout this morning. Thanks to everybody for coming out to that. We were talking about afterwards, and I'm just going to go ahead and declare, because, you know, we always like to say this was the first time we did something, and who really knows if it was the first time that we did whatever it is that we're saying it was the first of. I think we make a lot of stuff up sometimes to make ourselves feel good, but so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to declare that that was the largest formation in PT uniform of Group PT off a military installation in the history of the Air Force. What do you think? What do you think? Maybe.
He added the PT uniform because I told him when he said it was the largest formation, I was like, oh, you ain't ever met Zumba. So then he added the PT uniform. So then that covered it.
Zumba's not PT, baby. It's not. I mean, that's not what we're talking about.
Somebody in this audience is going to fight you.
I know. No, Zumba's PT. It's good. That's good. Hey, folks, we wanted to just take some time in this, and we're going to invite some friends up here in a minute. But what we wanted to do was maybe have something a little bit more. You know, it's been business the last couple days, so we want to have this be a little bit more on the personal side. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about who we are and you know what we believe and a little bit about our life, and then we're going to invite some friends up and have a conversation about resilience, about breaking through hard times and doing things together, and the value of what this family brings to us. So I was born in Ohio, grew up in Michigan. I had a pretty good childhood. You know, to
be clear, he's neither a Michigan or Ohio State fan.
Go Irish. Notre Dame fans in the audience. Notre Dame, go. Let's go. John Storms. That's right. This is the year, by the way. We're going to win the national championship. But you know, we're Gen Xers, right? So everybody's a latchkey kid. You know, by the time we were like 9 years old, we were just like running amok across the neighborhood and, you know, doing our own thing. And I joined the Air Force because I was signed up to go to community college in my local hometown because, let's just say, I wasn't getting into an actual university with my mediocre grades in high school. And I went to the orientation day to start our freshman year of community college. And I looked around the auditorium and I saw like everyone that I had graduated high school with just a few months before that. And I panicked and I thought to myself, this is just going to be the 13th grade. This is not college, right? And I got up in the middle of the orientation and walked out, and I went to this thing we used to have called a payphone. And I called my dad and I said, hey, I'm not going to waste my time or your money. I'm not doing this. And he said, well, what are you going to do? Because, you know, he's not just going to let me go flounder. And I knew that question was coming, so I said, I'm going to go talk to the Air Force recruiter. I'm going to go join the Air Force. And he said, all right, don't tell your mother until after you've signed all the paperwork. And so that's exactly how it happened. So that was in June. By July, a great recruiter had gotten me into the delayed enlistment program in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and that following February, I was off to basic training at Lackland as a defender. When I sat down with the recruiter, I'd done a few jobs, put a few jobs down. The recruiters will like this, and there was space left. And I was like, electronics or communications, I don't even remember. It was stuff that I had qualified for on the ASVAB. And the recruiter's like, you know, you should put a few more things down. You have a couple empty spots here. Let me show you this. And he took out a VCR tape and stuck it in his his VCR TV combo that he had in his office, and it played this awesome super BA video about dudes crawling around the dirt and shooting guns for a career field called security police. And I was like, that looks kind of cool. So he totally got me, right? We put that number 8 down on my list, and folks, if you volunteer to be a defender or maintainer, you're going to be a defender or maintainer, right? So thank you very much to that recruiter. So I started off in security forces. FE Warren Air Force Base was my first assignment. It was amazing to be a missile cop to start off with, and then from there, it's been an amazing 34 years in the Air Force. The best thing that happened to me though at FE Warren was one day at the Frontier Mall, I met this young lady, and we've been married. Next month will be 29 years. So, pretty lucky to keep it together for that long, right? Anybody who's married in the audience knows that this is a difficult thing to do over time. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of decisions that have to be made along the way that you have to make as a team. Sometimes you want to do different things, and along the way we also have raised 7 children. That's not a recommendation. I'm not making recommendations here. Just that's how it went for us. We've got 4 biological kids, and we've adopted 3. They're all out of the house right now. They're gone and doing their own thing, and it's awesome. So for those of you that have little kids and you're like, man, I can never imagine life without them, don't worry. There will come a time when a dormant trait comes alive in them, usually in their teenage years, and that's the trait that makes it okay for them to get the heck out of your house. So don't worry about that. It'll be great, different seasons in life, and we have number 6 grandkid on the way right now. So we got a couple things going on, right? We're busy, but it's great. Big family and a lot of things to be proud of. But along the way, lots of ups and downs, lots of things, lots of decisions that had to be made to try to balance what the Air Force was asking us to do with what my family needed me to do and what my family needed Doniel to do. So I'll stop there and let Doniel fill in all the blanks and talk a little bit about her side.
Well, I am not from Cheyenne, but I lived there as a teenager. I was a little nervous going back last month because I wasn't necessarily a good person when I was a teenager. I grew up in a different home situation than I would have preferred, as many of us did. I think that's one of the gifts the military gives the world, is it gives us opportunities to break cycles. And that's what I did as a 17-year-old. I say I ran away from home and joined the circus, AKA the Marine Corps, and that saved my life. It did break a cycle. I still had a lot of other things to work through, as a lot of us, I think, do when we come in for different reasons. And but I did, and Dave walked into Joslyn's. I think it's Dillard's. It's something else now. He walked into the department store at the Frontier Mall, and I said, that's the guy of my dreams. It took 3 years and 2 kids for him to realize he was the guy of my dreams. Otherwise, we'd have been married 30 years, a couple years ago. But it worked out, and overall, it's been great. There have been a lot of rough times. I don't want people to look at us and think, oh, man, the Air Force has been so good today. It has, but we've had rough times too. I would say there's periods of even up to a year where I was wondering if I wanted to stay with Dave or in the Air Force, because that's just how life goes. But in the end, I try and be a person of faith. I don't hold it against me when I cuss. I blame that on jiu-jitsu. But I do have a little bit of a mouth. I'd say if they're in the Bible, it's okay. Probably not. But so I try and be that person, and that's what's kept me in the game, to be honest. I know that's not the answer for everyone, but for me, it's the only thing that's kept my head above water at times. Now the pace is rough, but it's amazing to be out there talking to airmen and their families, and that gives me, it gives me the most energy, but it also leaves me exhausted every day. Dave and I learned a while ago that every time we're talking to one of you, we're assuming that you're going through one of the worst times in your life. Over half the time we'll be right. In fact, just this morning, I learned that somebody in this room is going through one of the worst times of their life and still is thinking about other people, taking care of other people. And that's what we do as spouses and airmen, and that's why we're still in the game. I mean, it's probably rude to bring it up, but it costs us a lot of money to be in the Air Force right now. But it's worth not having the resources we thought we would have at this point in our life because of what we're able to do to help airmen and to bring their voice to the Pentagon, where sometimes, especially on the enlisted side, I think it can be marginalized. So we're excited to be here. We're excited to talk to you a little bit about quality of life and family. And with that, I will turn it over to Dave again.
Yeah, like Doniel said, it's everybody's got a different story, right? Everybody came in for a different reason, come from a different background. We've got married people, we've got folks that were married and now they're not, or they're married to someone else, and we've got different family constructs all over the place, and we've got folks that are trying to raise kids, and we have so many different situations going on across our Air Force. But one thing that's super consistent is that if we know about your struggle, we've got a way to help you. There's no doubt about that. And, being in this position and being at the MAJCOM for the last few years, I've seen every program, right? Rarely am I surprised by something that someone brings to me. And quite frankly, a lot of times when somebody tells me something that I'm surprised by, I find out later that they're actually wrong about what they told us, right? Because it's kind of off base, and actually I did know about it. It's just this thing over here. And the programs that we have are really good. Do some of them need some resourcing and some help? Absolutely. Folks, we don't need more programs if we are connecting with each other and we're making sure that we're paying attention to what's going on and we're looking people in the eye. And when we do see something that's off, we're asking them about it and then listening and trying to figure out what we can do to make their experience in the Air Force better. People will make a lot of different decisions about why they stay in the organization, and right now you've probably heard us talking about this week. I think the Vice Chief brought it up, like retention. Retention's really good. We do have pockets, though, of AFSCs and jobs and locations, maybe where definitely where retention is not as good as in other places, but overall across the Air Force, we're doing really, really well. I expect that trend to continue. I am worried about what that looks like for families on the backside of Epic Fury and what is happening on these deployments. We are absolutely looking at that and concerned about it, and will continue to be. But folks, this is a really great organization when you look at it across all of our MAJCOMs and across the globe. We've just got a lot of people that are really interested in helping others and focused on the mission, but never taking their eye off of what the mission is doing to the people sometimes, and trying to figure out ways to smooth that out or give people chances to take a knee. And that, that's one of the leadership arts that you have to get good at as you get further along. It can't always be cranked up all the time. You've got to be able to give people space to take a knee and do what they like to do. So let's move into the next section of this. We've got another amazing couple that we want to invite up here. I started getting to know Chief Blaze when he was serving in the Pentagon on Chief Master on the Air Force 19's team, and was trying to work on a bunch of crazy changes that we were trying to do in evaluation systems and PME and a bunch of other stuff. And then most recently, before his current job, he was at Air University as our Air University Command Chief. And I'm super excited to have him in the Pentagon as our A2. So let me invite Chief Stephen Blazier and his wife, Jen, to join us on the stage. Folks, make some noise for the Blazes. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and I will turn it over to you guys to do some intros.
Well, thanks, CMSAF. Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Dr. Wolfe, for having us. I did want to let you know that I did share the news with Jen that you invited over 1,000 airmen over to our house on the Fort Belvoir.
That's right.
So for PT.
I did.
So yeah, well, that's under review. So, okay, I'll just say it's really a blessing to be here and share with you guys our experience and our story a little bit. But honey, did you want to say good morning first?
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Okay.
It is great to be here.
Yeah. For us, you know, I think like you said, CMSAF, everybody has a story. For us, it started in Florida. So Jen and I were high school sweethearts, and we actually met 2 years apart, if that makes sense. So we sat this far in a class together.
Allegedly.
And 2 years later, she realized I existed. But I was persistent, and we were high school sweethearts. We were going to go our separate ways. I think you talk about kind of humble beginnings. I barely graduated high school. If it wasn't for Jen's mom pushing me, night classes and everything, you know, it probably wouldn't have happened. But this is a true story. So I grew up in the Jordan era, the Michael Jordan era. I went to the mall to buy a pair of Jordans, and I walked by an Air Force recruiter, and 2 weeks later I was in basic training. That used to happen back then. That was much faster. I came in on an open general contract. I wanted to do graphic art and photography. And while I was there, I was going through the phone book of jobs. And I kind of wrote down everything that I thought had something to do with art. And there was a job called photographic interpreter. I had no idea that was Intel. I like to say I give anybody hope that you can do things if you just keep trying. But the funny thing is, when I went back to my dorm and my MTI said, "Are you open general?" And you're all going to be cops, right? Anybody who's open general is all going to be cops. But it has been a blessing. Very quickly, you know, Jen and I, we thought we were going to go our own separate ways. She was a star athlete, played competitive soccer all around the nation for 14 years. She was state MVP for soccer. So we're going to go our separate ways. But very, very quickly, I realized that I didn't want to take this Air Force journey with the most amazing woman I'd ever met in my life. And so after graduating tech school, we came back home, and we actually eloped. We didn't tell anybody. We just took our best friends to the beach and had a little ceremony. Her mom was not happy about that, but
Yeah.
anyway. Yeah, so did you want to share any more about that part of the story, honey?
No, I think you nailed it.
Okay. So off we go, right? Off we go. I had never been on an airplane until I joined basic training. I'd never left the state of Florida. And so I didn't really know what was out there. Our first assignment was Beale Air Force Base. And I told Jen it was going to be like Baywatch, right?
He did, though.
That, you know, palm trees and all that stuff. You know, we didn't really have the internet back then. We just had TV. And we go to Beale Air Force Base. And back then, I was in the 13th Intelligence Squadron. And we had first figured out how to connect sensors and satellites and drones. And it was during Allied Force. And we were very blessed early on. Our son was born, Jordan was born in California. And so we were, 19 and 20, trying to figure things out. And it was interesting working shift work and doing all the different things as a family. And so I will let you know that wasn't a great experience. It was a brand new unit. We had a ton of young airmen there, not a lot of supervision, and that can be challenging. Just ask any first sergeant in the room. But we were probably on our way out of the Air Force. It wasn't a good experience. And then on our anniversary, our second anniversary, I got a call to the orderly room, and I had an assignment to Hawaii. And I said, Air Force, we're gonna give you one more chance.
Yeah.
I know that looks a lot more like Baywatch than Northern California. So off we go to Hawaii in 2001. And I think you guys, you know, what happens in 2001. So 9/11 happens. And also in 2001, we took Jordan for a checkup at the hospital, and they say we want to run a couple more tests. And as a parent, you guys can realize, like, you know, that kind of, okay, what are we talking about? And they run a couple more tests. And they come back, and more doctors come into the room, and they say, we need to tell you something. Your son has something called neurofibromatosis type 1. We didn't know what that was. And you know, that was, you know, a thing where we were like, okay, you know, how do we navigate this situation? And we started to get some really, really good care in Hawaii and just doing scans and figuring more out. Also in Hawaii is our daughter was born. So our family started to grow. Natalie was born, our butterfly. And we just started to try to figure out one piece at a time. And from that point forward, most of everything we did, right, between the commitment of 9/11 and the commitment of making sure we navigate what's best for our family is what happened for the next 20 plus years. I want to share with you guys, you know, at every assignment, at every turn, you know, you've talked a lot about this week. The systems are not perfect, right? Trying to navigate referral networks and specialty care. You know, we were stationed in San Angelo. I was a tech school instructor there, and we would have to drive 7 hours to Houston, you know, for scans. But honey, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about like how people would support us we wanted to join the Air Force to build a family and find a family. But the way that the Air Force has showed up for us in that whole time, that whole period, is something I just can't put a price tag on. We talk a lot about resources, but the resource, if you guys look left and right in this room, in the care, is just something that's really hard to put into words. But do you want to expand on that more, honey?
Yeah, I think having a medically complex kiddo is a full-time job. And I think any parent that experiences that knows that. Moving every so often puts another layer of complications into that. Jordan's medical diagnosis back in 2001, when we found out, there wasn't a lot of literature created about it. There was a paragraph in a book here and a paragraph in a book there, and so it was even more anxiety-inducing, I think, because of so many unknowns. It was our military family that kind of rallied around us from the very beginning to show us what this life really could have in store for us if we stuck around. And I'm very glad that we did. Our son's journey didn't end how we wanted it to, but he had a beautiful life, and he would have been the first person to tell you that. There are people sitting in this audience that are aunt and uncles to him, that were around when he was our first assignment to our last assignment. And it's those people, I think, that carried us through. I think that building trust in these scenarios is like, it's not a grand gesture. You can't build trust with a pizza party or a bouncy hassle or how do I say, the mundane, everyday, boring, what we consider boring parts of life. Like, that's where you build trust. The big moments that we would assume would be so meaningful, really, it was the little things, the showing up every day, the checking in, those people that supported us in whatever capacity we needed are the reason that we continue to serve so willingly, I think.
Yeah, and you know, so obviously we talk about how you get through hard things. Things got a lot harder for us in 2022. We were stationed at Maxwell, and for the first time, we heard that Jordan was terminal. And I know there's people in the room that have traveled this road, and the first question you have is, well, how much time do you have, right? What does that mean? How much time? You know, that's when the fight intensified. The challenges intensified, but I also will tell you the support also intensified, and the love from the Air University family, and in the continuing care when we came here to the Air Staff, to the A2, you know, and I was able to come back to Intel, and the community and the family is just, you know, it's the priceless piece. And, you know, on January 9th of this year, our son completed his mission and took his last breath on earth and his first breath in heaven. I can look you guys all in the eye, and I've seen a lot of you guys this week, and I'm glad that we don't have to think of what this would have been like without the Air Force family, because we had so many who just loved and supported us. And Jordan never knew life without the Air Force, and we're so thankful that he didn't have to. And so yeah, the things that I think I would share with you is we realized early on, you're not the first to travel the road, so the first thing you got to do is ask for help. And I'll never forget at Maxwell, and I went to mental health right away. I realized the challenges and stress of this, but I also asked the med group commander, hey, is there anybody else that you would recommend who's been through this who could kind of advise us? And I still text that gentleman today. He was a family who grew up in the Montgomery area. His son was actually stationed in Global Strike and had a very aggressive form of brain cancer. And the advice and the wisdom of, his son had only passed a year prior. He was 22. The advice and the love and the support, he still stays connected to us. It's just one of those things. And so many people that I can't even list are the reason that Jen and I think are doing, if anything, that people ask us, how are you doing? I love it that they don't ask it in a cliche way. They ask it with persistence and stay around and look us in the eye. And so, yeah.
I think we learned that showing up matters. In a lot of capacities, we don't have to show up. It's like you're not going to get fired if you don't ask somebody how their day is going. But when we do show up, it always matters. It just always matters. But those little things that seem so simple, they're easy to not do just as much as they're easy to do. They matter. Yep.
And you'll hear the cliche, and we'll turn it back over to you, both. And I think whether we're going to open it up for Q&A, but you do hear that every day is a gift, and the things that we've learned through serving is the most precious things you have in life is the time you have and the people you get to share it with, and that's how our son lived. I think that's where we have to continue to focus on that. Don't look at the highs and lows, but as Jen said, even the gift of the relationships that you guys have made this week, and encouraging each other, and we will do hard things, right? But it's how you operate in those moments is the character of how you're going to be defined, and the Air Force taught us that, and it's really what fuels our service and why we want to continue to serve is because that's how they loved on us, and we want to be there to do the same in return. So thanks, CMSAF, for allowing us to share a little bit today.
Yeah, thanks to both of you guys for having the courage to go through all of the things that you've gone through, right? Would have been no one would have judged you for handling it in a different way, right? But the way that you guys have shown up and shown that grit and that toughness and that vulnerability, right? There's people in this audience right now, like Doniel said, that are right now having the biggest struggle of their lives, and maybe they haven't told anybody about it yet, right? Or maybe there's something that people in this audience right now are dealing with from their childhood that they haven't processed yet and don't know how to get through. If you're that person, like we want to help you, right? There's people around you that would stop everything they're doing right now to dive in on your problem and try to bring you to a better spot and move you along the road to try to get that healing that you need, so that and that has nothing to do with so that you can be better at the mission, right? That's like a seventh order byproduct of it, right? The reason we care is because we love you guys and we want you to be happy. Why would I want you to spend most of you guys, maybe except for the folks towards the front, you're in the prime of your life, right? Folks toward the front, maybe not so much, but you're in the prime of your life. Like, why would we want you to be miserable, struggling with something that you could handle with the right resources? I'll tell you, in the Pentagon, Chaplain Davis is our chief of chaplains in the Pentagon. Chaplain Davis is on my calendar on the regular, right? That's my mental health way to sit down and talk, and we talk about things that are going on in the Air Force, but more than that, I can just talk to him about what I'm dealing with and how I'm reacting to the pressures of this job and the pressures on my marriage and my family, and how I'm not, I can talk to him about how I don't feel like I'm showing up for my kids right now because I can't even answer their text messages until 2 days later because I'm so busy with this schedule, and I've got an outlet where I can sit down with somebody who I can just tell anything to, and everybody needs that. Everybody needs some folks that they can rely on. So you're not alone in whatever it is that you're going through. And I promise you, just like the Blazes found someone else who was going through the same thing, even though I'll bet there were times where they were like, nobody can possibly know what this feels like, right? Because of the level of pain that they were going through. But they found somebody, and that person was able to offer them perspective that helped them get further down the road, right? And that's what this family's all about. That's what we can do for each other, but we got to know.
Well, the reason we thought of the Blazes when they were talking about this panel is I've been around the Air Force a long time. As a young enlisted spouse, especially a cop spouse, I didn't always feel like the institution really cared about me. I didn't like the segregation of spouses. There were just so many things that made it more palatable to me to find meaning off base. And then I met Jordan. I never met Jordan in person. Dave did. But I went to the open house, and I was like, man, the best people I've met as we've traveled around the Air Force and PACF and ACC are here. Like, how do the Blazes know all these super cool people? And then I went to Jordan's memorial, and the people that were getting up to speak, the auditorium, it was a mega church with an auditorium filled with people who were touched by Jordan's life. And I was like, what the frick? This kid was 25, and he lived more than people who've lived 3 times that amount of time. He touched more lives than people who've lived for 100 years. And it just made me question, what the heck am I doing with my life, first of all? But it made me think about what relationships and investing in them meant and showing up for people meant. And then I had an opportunity to invite somebody to to an event where very high level spouses were going to be there. And I was like, I'm inviting Jen because she knows everybody. She'll be right at home. And because the Blazes know everybody.
We're old too.
Yeah, and they're old.
By the way, we are about to celebrate this month 28 years of marriage in a row. So yeah, we've been
in a row.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So we go to this event, and Jen didn't know anybody, and I was just amazed because I'd just been to these things. I'm becoming familiar with the family. Everybody that I admire and knows them and loves them and shows up for them. And so I couldn't figure out how I should get to know anybody. And on the way home, I call my kid, and it hits me like a brick. Their relationships aren't like wave level surface tops. How are you? Kiss, kiss on each cheek. Because of the position that you're in, you just know people. They run oceans deep, and they mean something, and they're gonna last for eternity. And that's when I really started. I didn't have to talk to the team about this. They had already decided. But Jordan had a tattoo, and I don't know who wants to talk about that said "Into the Storm." And I had noticed it right away before all this relationship stuff started hitting me. I had noticed it, and I knew it meant something to them. But what I thought it meant and what I think it means now are different things. And it's Into the Storm. Did you want to talk more about that, Dave, or Blaze, or Jen?
I think I'd like Blaze to talk about the meaning of what it meant to Jordan. I think that would be.
Do you remember the first time that it came up with Jordan? Buffalo?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, you go ahead.
So, not everybody knows about the buffalo. Out in nature, right, when there's storms approaching, a lot of animals run for shelter, hide, or turn from the storm. But the buffalo is one of the animals that actually turns to the storm and seeks it out, because it knows that addressing it head on and walking it through it is going to get it through the other side faster than if it was to go around the corner and wait out the storm. So Jordan's thought process of dealing with his struggles was that he was going to take them head on into the storm. And it became kind of a motto for us, which is why we all have some version of Into the Storm tattoos on us. Our family does. Sorry.
Yeah, we, you know, a lot of people would reach out to Jordan. And I mean, like when I talked about he completed his mission, I mean, he really, really took it to say, hey, no matter, he realized that this was a line he lived by. He said, I always know there's somebody out in the world who's going through something harder and complaining less.
And he had terminal cancer when he said that.
Right. Well, on the way home, after he first heard that news, he said that to us. I always know there's somebody out there who's going through something harder and complaining less.
And I want to be more like them, is what he said.
Yeah. And so, you know, once he hears, you know, the buffalo, it became a kind of an embrace for our family. We all got inked up together, which was a really, really cool experience. But I actually do want to share a little bit more of not just the motto for our family, but so Jordan lived by the also a Bible verse, John 13:7, which is you may not understand now, but one day you will. And he passed actually at 7:31 in the morning, which was kind of symbolic for us because it was almost it brought us peace. But earlier this week, you know, you saw the CMSAF panel. The formers were up here, and they talked a lot more about just time in uniform. They talked about families. They talked about life after service. They talked about identities and being more than just the person in the uniform and not just embracing your identity and just your rank. Who thinks the Chief Master of the Air Force is busy? Anybody? Who thinks the Chief Master of the Air Force's schedule is busier than yours?
Not yours.
So like I said, Jordan passed at 7:31. At 8:36, I got a text from Dave Wolfe expressing his love and condolences and support for our family. An hour later, Dr. Wolfe showed up at Jordan's Celebration of Life with a t-shirt that had Jordan's tattoo of Into the Storm on her shirt. If you saw yesterday the Chief Master of the Air Force's entire team, the office, their blue shirts, on the back of their shirts it says Into the Storm. The patches that he gives out says Into the Storm. And, you know, we talk about your identities of being an airman, being a friend, being a brother, being a parent, you know, being a spouse. You know, these two right here have showed up for us in ways that we just can't even describe. And the example you guys set for all of us, we're blessed to have you, you know, setting that example. But I do think it is a thing where we will do hard things, and how you face them, just know that you don't face them alone. But yeah, let's push through it on the other side. And that's the thing that I think that Jordan and so many people who helped raise us, like I said, we were really just kids when we had kids. Mm-hmm. And we're thankful for all the love and support of learning that the Air Force family and family itself goes far beyond bloodlines. And there's people who care around you, and if just first thing you got to do is just let them know that you need them.
We got to share the Into the Storm motto with Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolfe, who many of you will remember as a guardsman that was shot in D.C. A couple months ago. We got to have breakfast with him, and I was telling the team, can we get him a shirt? Can we get him a shirt? And it wasn't enough time. Usually my bright ideas, if I have any, come too late to do anything about them. But luckily, we had a shirt that said Wolf on the back of it. It was used, but we got to give it to him and talk to him about Jordan. Staff Sergeant Wolfe is also 25. And it's for two 25-year-olds to have to go through things that no 25-year-old should have to go through. To be able to share Jordan's story and what Into the Storm means with people who get it is, I feel like we've made that part of our mission. Because we know that people are going through really hard times. But I hope there's a time where Dave can go at least a week without opening up an email that we've lost airmen that could have been prevented. I want his day to start with emails about Airman so-and-so just got promoted, step promoted, or Airman so-and-so just saved a life. Airman so-and-so just did some amazing thing that happened to them, and we just have to celebrate. That's not the way most of his days start today. But thanks to Jordan and the inspiration he's given us and the team, we hope that you feel that mission, that focus from us. And if you have suggestions on how we can do better, we want to hear them, because we desperately want to do better.
All right, I can't think of a better way to kind of wrap up our comments here. I appreciate it. Another gift that Jordan has given us is he's given us focus, right? He's given us something to aim at. And I encourage every one of you to think about what your aim is. What are you focusing on? What is for yourself, for your family, for the team around you? A lot of times we find when people get lost, it's because they don't have that aim. They're not looking out into the future and saying, this is the thing that drives me. This is where I get my grounding from. And whether that's faith or belief systems or goals that you've got for the future, sometimes it's a goal just for that day, right? Because it's heavy. And maybe you wake up and you don't want to do it, but you do it anyways. And maybe it's long-term stuff, but you've got to have an aim. So I'm so grateful for Jordan to give us, for my office. You can imagine, as the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, the storms are coming, right? We know that there's going to be hard times in this job. We've already had several that have come through. My team's going to have storms, right? Every team's got storming phases, but we know that we're not going to shy away from it. And when we see it coming, we're going to turn toward it. And we're going to remember Jordan when we do. So with that, let's open the mic and see if anybody's got questions. What do you guys want to talk about?
Good morning. My name's Matt Sarden Hall from Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. I wanted to ask a question about the military spouse commission that you all have. Amazing program, by the way. Have you all considered opening a seat at the table to an E4 spouse or below, or even an NCO spouse, to get more of an actual perspective of how it is for those members today?
No, and I'll tell you why. E3 and E4 spouses have a lot. This is what my experience is. They don't know what they don't know yet, and they don't always understand that there are a lot of things there for them. So, but this is my promise to you. When we go to every base we go to, we meet with the KSLs and the first sergeants, because we want we want to know what's going on. We invite spouses to town halls. What we do know is that spouses don't show up to town halls. So we've just been talking on the spouses side. I don't know where Kara is, curly redhead. She has made, she suggested, and we are going to do it, that we're getting on the informal spouses page and trying to seek out those spouses. We've talked about having sensing sessions and town halls with spouses, but I'll be honest, they don't show up. When we've opened it up to wider audience, we just can't get them there. But we're going to try this. We're going to try to go to the formal sessions. We are talking to them. The problem of making it too big is that nothing happens because all everybody does is talk. We're trying to get a general pulse on what's going on. We're interested in the individual stories, but it's really hard. It would be really hard to find the E3 or E4 spouse that knew enough about the institution to understand what the institution can do and how to engage at that level. But we're working on it. We're working on what the commission looks like beyond who's on it, because people could argue that there's people on the commission that don't understand it either. And I might agree with that. I think there might be a couple of people that don't. But my commitment to you is that every time we travel, we're meeting with spouses. We don't want to do just KSLs, but that's who we get to show up. We're working on ways to meet with other levels of spouses for sure. We do have E3 spouses that are KSLs though, to be clear. We do have them showing up, but those people that show up, the KSLs, they're probably already getting the information, right? So I'm mindful of that. And to take it a step further, we're working on ways to get, our team is now tasked with working on ways for me to meet with the teenagers. Nobody's hearing their voice, and I think they've got something to offer as well. So I think that the commission includes the entire family and the active duty airmen. It's still very new. We've got binders. As Dave said in his keynote, this is something Cindy Wilsbach has been working on over the course of 3 administrations. And so I'm familiar with it and the intent of it. I'm not sure how that's actually going to play out, but I'm going to tell you it better mean something, or I'm not going to stay on it very long. And so I know what Cindy's intent is. I feel like I'm not answering your question very well, but I want to answer it better. Just opening up the fire hose could do more harm than good, I think. But we have a lot of people who are married to people with positions of influence that can actually do something about the problems we're hearing.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of our focus.
Can I just add real quick? So the commission is going to be able to take things like, hey, we need the law changed for, I'll give you an example, something I would love to see. I think it should be illegal for a company if a military spouse leaves the company because of military orders of their military member. It should be illegal to not vest them in the retirement system that they have been putting money into. A lot of times a company has a retirement account, you have a individual contribution just like your TSP, and then a match. A lot of our spouses don't stay long enough at a job to get the tenure with that job to get the match. That should be illegal. That they should just get it, right? No matter how many days they stay there. If they have to leave for military purposes, they should get that. So it's going to be that kind of level thing that we're going to be taking, hopefully to the president to say, hey, let's go to Congress and get this law changed. So it's that level of thing. As far as knowing what the experiences are of the E4 spouses, that we're committed to knowing that on a day-to-day basis, right? And can we know every little thing about what's going on? No, but what we find is a lot of times people bring us problems, and if they had brought the problem to the people at their base that know how to fix, the problem would get fixed, right? Or it's a leadership problem or a personality problem. The president isn't going to care about the personality problems that are going on in the unit, right? So you see, like, the perspective would be just different. So we're committed to helping those folks, absolutely. I just don't think the commission is the place where those problems are necessarily going to get solved. It's going to be a lot of high-level stuff that's going to make systemic and institutional changes to the way that our spouses experience the Air Force and the military writ large. Thanks for the question, though. All right, I think, where are we at on time? Anybody got, where's the time?
We're basically there. We can do maybe one more.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. We're only going to probably be able to do one more, but we're going to be here all day long, so hopefully you guys can catch us. Let's go to the middle.
Master Sergeant Miles, First Sergeant at McCord. I've been to 9 bases, and unfortunately, we've experienced 9 suicides, 2 of them being spouses. You guys talked about being Generation X, and unfortunately, those members were the elder millennials. And if you know anything about millennials, we are hardworking, and we don't tell you guys about our pains. What advice would you have to both the active duty and spouses that are millennials that are going through crisis but don't want to express that they are in pain?
Yeah, I mean, the individual circumstances that, you know, each person has that lead them to not sharing things are, you know, so variable. It's hard to give one piece of advice. I think what you just described there is kind of the point of why we wanted to do this panel, like to show you that it doesn't matter what job you're in or what position you're in, or, you know, life's coming at you. And we know that, right? If you're not sharing what's going on with you and what you're struggling with, we know that there's still stuff, right? And trying to get people to open up to that is really important. You know, our mental health clinics, they tell us that about 80% of the people that come to the mental health clinic don't have a diagnosable mental health condition. They don't need a mental health professional. They need a friend. They need somebody to talk to. They need somebody who's been through what they've been through to give them some perspective. They need to do the basics, right, of taking care of themselves and having those relationships around them. So I don't know what I can tell you other than we care about what's happening, and I don't care what generation you are. Quite frankly, I think the generational talk is scientific guessing and mumbo jumbo. I don't believe in this generational gap stuff. I don't think the human beings had a software upgrade in 2,000 years. We're the same. You want to know what's going on. You guys want to know why I'm doing the Why series? Because you want to know why. You know what I wanted to know when I was a young person? I wanted to know why. Why am I spending my time this way? Why do you care so much about this? We just didn't have a method to go ask why like you do now, right? So I think the generational differences are minimal.
CMSAF, if I could
resources.
add,
yeah.
We've had this conversation, as it's some discussed. I think the main constant, if you look, and I kind of reflected on this once I got a little bit later in my career. You know, you travel around. If you're, you know, you guys have seen, you have the placards up, and you know your DVs and all this stuff. And kind of one day I'd realized, you know, how much work had been put in for this visit. And you guys have all seen, hey, we have a DV coming, and maybe I'd be there for a day. Right? And all that work to welcome them, parking spaces, all that stuff. But what kind of work do we put in to welcome a family to a unit who's going to be there for years? Yeah. In comparison. Yep. And particularly the spouses get left out all the time. How often do you give the full family the mission brief? Because they're going to sacrifice as part of that service to the team and to the country. And I think, like, to your point about them feeling pain, it's that early hello that is an opportunity to express that I care far beyond this transaction of just your loved one going away all the time. You're part of this team. And I think, like, if you can express that, it's an opportunity for whatever pain they're carrying to be shared, and now they're not sharing that alone. And they find out that maybe there's someone else in the unit who has that kind of shared thing. And then I think that's the thing that we look past far too often. And we should look at those situations to not just, you know, to if there's some DV come and show the best of ourselves should be showed to every member on the team and their equal value for what they give.
I wanted to add something to the comments about your question, too. I think we live in a culture where there's a misunderstanding that being strong means we're not allowed to ask for help. And that's not true, guys, at all, at all. We all need help, going to the right people for it. I think my biggest lesson that I learned in some of my struggles was I needed to be willing to receive the same help that I would have offered to any one of my friends in my tribe. Any one of my brothers and sisters, I would have stood up and bent over backwards for them, right? Yet I couldn't, I don't know what it was. I wasn't willing to receive the help from everybody else because I thought I had to do it all myself, or that it made me look like I was not strong enough if I received help. And that's where I started to fall apart. And it was my tribe that reminded me that they were going to give me the help whether I wanted it or not. And I'm very appreciative for that. I think that we forget that sometimes. Ask for the help.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then take it.
And then take it.
Seems to have a nowhere time, and they're scrambling on how to make the math, but
Yeah,
thank you guys again.
it's all good.
Thanks.
Thanks, folks, for spending the last little bit of time with us, and thanks to you for the folks that are out there struggling. We got you, right? Talk to us. I end every all call the same way. I ask folks to go find somebody to help. So I'll end the same way. Go find somebody to help. We've got lots of folks that need each other, and you'll find that you'll have those relationships that when it does come, we all know if you're not going through something right now, just wait around a little while, right? Life's coming at you, and we've got your backs. Folks, make some noise for the Blazes for me. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Oh, we're still mic'd up. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, please keep your seats while our pit crew does a quick stage reset. The next panel will begin shortly.